did you find the editing process for Ascendants? And did it match what you initially intended it to look to be?
Yeah. The editing process for me is it's probably different to some people. So I started back in the days with my film work. I started out editing before I was officially properly directing. Directing is probably one of the last things that I probably ended up doing. Believe it or not, the moment I've put pen to paper or I've typed it out, like the story, I edit in my mind as I go. So I'm on the spectrum of what's called high functioning autism. You know, it doesn't affect me terribly because I've had to learn a lot of ways of managing and working with things. But one of these things that's a bit of a gift is I have never had a problem going into my mind, right? And it allows me to multitask in very different ways and obsess about things. But what it means is like I see so much visually that I've seen the film before I've edited the film. So what happens when I do my storyboard, the storyboard really is the edit for me because depending if I storyboard it, but this I storyboarded and literally everything that I had in the storyboard made its way to the picture. But the only thing that changes in the edit is the sense of what I feel when the frame should cut. Like, if I need a 2 or 3 frames extra on something versus not cutting, or like if there's a blink just before the cut, I'll make sure I cut out the blink,
Mhm.
like things like that. So there's aspects of the edit that become technical, but overall, the edit is about serving the story for me. So the edit came together pretty quick, believe it or not. It was like what 14-minute film. I think the edit for that I got that done in like pretty much like about just under a week, just over a week. Wasn't super long, but you get the first pass of it, and then for me, it's like writing is rewriting. It's the same thing with the edit. Like I edit and then I go in and then I dial in on all of the other things around the edit to pull it together and make it tight.
How did you do the color grading?
So the color grading, I did that in Adobe.
Oh,
So I went through Adobe, no fancy softwares, nothing for it. Um, Basically because obviously we shot on the Red Dragon, it shoots raw codec, so I'm able to pull that in and manipulate things where I want in terms of like ISO and the warm or cooler tone that I want to it and with the Kelvins, so I can play with that. So what I did when I got it imposed, because I try to not like how I work, I try to not commit terribly
mhm.
too much on the day in terms of like locking something in. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got this look. This sort of works. But when I get into the edit and I start really feeling it, I then go, okay, cool. This is how far I can push it. So pretty much it was what about a week and a half, 2 weeks of just fine tuning. There was a couple of moments, I referenced earlier, like there's a lot of sun. So, sunshine is like the enemy when you're shooting outside. So there was a few moments where I had to really like ride the exposure values and stuff a lot in terms of like giving them, like markers so I could actually adjust gradually, like the highlights or stuff like this. So it's moments like that that take more time with color grading for me. But overall, it wasn't terribly too complicated. I just wanted to, I guess you'd say, mute some
Mhm.
of the colors. I didn't want it overly saturated as a whole, and not really punchy. So there was a sort of style I was trying to find with it, because I had to in the end, because how I originally see it, I see it being a cloudy, much more moody look. The day that we shot, the first day with the main dialogue and everything, it was a completely sunshiny day, and we didn't have the time to set anything up or to do anything to flag stuff off and that. So I had to work with it. So in the end, that really heavily dictated the overall feeling for the aesthetic of the grade.
Mhm.
So in the end, I had to pretty much grade to the sunshine, then come back in and dial it in.
What was your favorite part of the final edit?
Favorite part of the final edit? Um, I think overall for me, my favorite part of the final edit was how they're all the characters, two characters, like they're running away from all the trauma and all of the action and stuff. They're just trying to deal with this situation. And then in the final part of the edit where the score sound design comes in, where I laid that in there, and where it built to the end of like the drama, where it almost feels like it switches a bit of tonality and goes to almost like, doesn't go horror, but it goes a bit dark.
Mhm.
The movie, I was very adamant when I did it that like I wanted the tone to feel very different at the end to the tone of how it started, and I feel very confident that at the end, everything that we did on the day, because when you shoot, you know, your pieces, you know what you've shot, but when you get it in the edit, that's really where you know what you've shot. Film you write, the film you shoot, and the film you edit. That's pretty much the three processes that I see when it comes to doing a film. You make it 3 times essentially. But in the edit, like when you know that you've got those moments, it's like boom. And then when you lay it in with the sound design and all of that, it's like, ah. So that was the favorite bit for me.
Will there be more to Ascendants? Will the short film develop into a series or a feature film, or we can't talk about it yet?
Yeah, you can talk about it. Yeah. So basically, I've been working on a bit of an extension of this
Mhm.
world, because what Ascendants is it serves as like a microcosm of a moment that's happened after all of this other stuff has happened. And so what I've been doing is I've been fleshing out like the larger scale of the world and finding where these characters exist within this world. So I'm currently working on some bits with it. I've just wrote a new feature film that I'm looking potentially shooting next year. So that came after Fighting Spirit Film Festival, believe it or not. So I now have another script, but I'm going to be diving into the world of Ascendants,
Mhm.
and I've done a little bit of work on that. So there is something in the pipeline. So watch this space, I guess, as they say.
Oh, thank you for the main portion. And now let's get into speed round. So for speed round, you pick one film for each category.
Yep.
What is your favorite childhood film?
Ooh, favorite childhood film: Aliens.
What's the scariest film you watched?
It would be when I was a child. The Thing,
What was the last film you watched?
The Crow,
What is the next film you're going to watch?
The Creator.
And which cinematic universe would you like to live in?
That's got me. Speed round. Hold up, it's not so speedy now. Oh dear, that's a tough one. It's between Logan and Blade. I'm going to go Logan.
Well, that's all from us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all your wisdom and insight into filmmaking today.
No bloody problems. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.